So where did Giuliani get this hard drive?
I got it directly from Putin.
Well, okay, but how much did it cost?
Actually, he just wanted a couple of bottles of vodka in return, which
Right.
wasn't bad. I mean, it cost me about $150. I sent it to Putin.
Welcome to Discourse Politics, everybody. These Hunter Biden email drops from the hard drive are so bombshelly and so dramatic that I was inspired to make my first meme. So here it is. Link in the description below if you want to share it. So this story is all over the place, from where Giuliani actually got this hard drive to accusations of Russian collusion, if you can believe that, to this completely corroborates Joe Biden was in on the fix from the get-go, that he lied on several occasions, which we'll get into. And there's just a lot of stuff here to look at. So without further ado, let's get on with it. So Steven Crowder, regardless of how you feel about Steven Crowder, he did a one-on-one with Rudy Giuliani, and it was pretty funny. You should go check that out if you get a chance. But in that interview, he goes through the provenance, the chain of custody, how he came to possess the hard drive, and here it is.
Hunter Biden brought his hard drive into a repairman to repair it. The repairman took it. Hunter Biden signed a receipt for it, which I have here, and said he was going to come back for it. 2 days later, he came back and gave him a part. And then when it was done, he never came back. According to the agreement, after 90 days, the hard drive is abandoned under the law, and it belongs to the merchant.
So the first defense that Twitter and Facebook put out for why they were not going to spread this information or allow people to spread this information, even through private messaging. They even shut down private messages with the link to the New York Post article. The reason they were going to do that is because these were supposedly hacked emails. That's not the case. These were supposedly legally obtained because Hunter Biden forgot to pick up his laptop from somebody who had done service on his laptop. Thus, the legality of, after 90 days, according to the agreement he signed, the property becomes that of the person who was doing the repairs.
The merchant held it for another 3-4 months, and then he heard all this talk on television, and he started to get worried. What do I have here? This could be criminal evidence.
Right.
So he opened it, and he almost fainted. He said, "I never saw anything like this before." And if you looked at the photographs, you'd probably come to that conclusion also.
Now, the sources from the New York Post say that there was 25,000 photos and videos, personal photos and videos on the laptop. Also, a lot of risque photos. I'm going to tell you this right now. I probably won't cover any of that. One, I don't care about people's personal issues. Two, it doesn't really, it's not important to me. I don't care what Hunter Biden does in his spare time. What I do care about is, was the vice president basically selling access through Hunter Biden for profit? Which seems to be the case with this hard drive. It sort of corroborates the story that Vice President Biden knew what he was doing, and he was getting a cut, and he was on the take.
But then he took a look at the text, and he saw in the text major contradictions to what the Bidens were saying on television, like the one I just told you.
Right.
Biden was saying, "I didn't know anything about Burisma in Ukraine," and there's plenty of evidence that he did.
Now we're going to take a look at what was found on the hard drive, a little bit of what was found on the hard drive. What we're actually experiencing right now is called the drip. They're dripping out information, hoping that Joe Biden makes some sort of statement that they can prove is false with the rest of their information. My guess is they're dropping about 25% of what they've got, if that. And so we'll see. So this was put out in the New York Post. Revealed, Ukrainian exec thanked Hunter Biden for opportunity to meet dad. Says he never discussed his son's business dealings with Ukrainian gas company Burisma while he was vice president, but emails obtained by the Post show an executive thanking Hunter for the opportunity to meet your father. At the time, Burisma was sparring with the prosecutor, Viktor Shokin, whom Joe Biden later pressured the Ukrainian government to fire. Hunter Biden introduced his father, then President Joe Biden, to a top executive at a Ukrainian energy firm less than a year before the elder Biden pressured government officials in Ukraine into firing a prosecutor who was investigating the company, according to emails obtained by the Post. The never-before-revealed meeting is mentioned in a message of appreciation that Pasharsky, that's how I'm going to pronounce his name, an advisor to the board of Burisma, allegedly sent Hunter Biden on April 17, 2015, about a year after Hunter joined the Burisma board, at a reported salary of $50,000 a month. So he wrote, "Dear Hunter, thank you for inviting me to DC and giving an opportunity to meet your father and spend some time together. It's realty," I believe he meant really, "an honor and pleasure," the emails reads. This correspondence would completely go against Joe Biden's claim that he never spoke to his son about overseas business dealings. And there's a copy of the email. So then further down in the story, this is something I want to touch on. Less than 8 months after Pozharsky thanked Hunter Biden for the introduction to his dad, the then vice president admittedly pressured, and we'll show this video in a second, Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko and Prime Minister Arseniy Yatsenyuk into getting rid of Prosecutor General Viktor Shokin by threatening to withhold a $1 billion U.S. guarantee loan during December 2015 trip to Kiev. And here's the video of him bragging about doing just that very thing.
I remember going over convincing our team, or others, to convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over for, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't.
That state prosecutor obviously being Viktor Shokin, who was supposedly and allegedly, this is Eastern politics, on behalf of Poroshenko, was actually squeezing Burisma for money, and Burisma's ace in the hole was Joe Biden vis-a-vis Hunter Biden. To stop that, Joe Biden one-upped him and said, well, there's $1 billion on the table that we're supposed to give you for loan guarantees, but we're not going to do it unless you fire Viktor Shokin. And he's here bragging about it in public, probably because he forgot that Viktor Shokin was trying to squeeze Burisma out of money, but he also probably kind of forgot that it was pretty shady that his son sits on the board of Burisma and used the vice president of the United States to sort of stop that squeezing from happening. It's shadiness upon shadiness. Put another way, it was probably cheaper to pay the Bidens than it was to actually pay Viktor Shokin. That's kind of the bottom line. But nonetheless, Eastern European politics, what can you say?
So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired.
And here's the defense that obviously other people are going to use, and Biden himself, that they fired Viktor Shokin because he was corrupt. But that's Eastern politics, right? The corruption in this case was plenty to go around. It's not hard to imagine that Burisma hired Hunter Biden specifically because they knew the shakedown was coming. That's just how it goes. The politics of Eastern Europe. They knew that when there's a regime change, when there's a presidential change, when there's a leadership change, everybody wants their piece. And Burisma hired Hunter Biden as another card they could play. A Trump card, so to speak. Not a Donald Trump card, but a Trump card. And the point is, when you boil it all down, it is shady politics. And yes, Viktor Shokin was supposedly shady, but also the Bidens are shady, because they basically sold the power of the United States government to help a foreign natural gas company fight off other people like the Bidens in another country. So that's really what it comes down to is the Bidens played chess against Poroshenko and Shokin, but the Bidens had the power of the federal government behind them. The United States government, it's a lot more powerful. And so when you're dangling $1 billion in loan guarantees for a government, that's huge. And they lost, so they had to back down. And remember, I want this all to be legal, so all of that is alleged. Everything I just said was alleged. Not hard to imagine, but it's all alleged, okay? All on the same page, all alleged. And it actually makes me happy that this is the Biden family and not the Clinton family, because if this were the Clinton family after this video, I feel like I'd have to look over my shoulder a lot. But anyway, neither here nor there, all alleged. Shokin said at the time of his firing, he made specific plans to investigate Burisma that included interrogations and other crime investigation procedures into all members of the executive board, including Hunter Biden. So Hunter Biden was on the list of investigation to be interrogated for crimes into all members of the executive board. However, that's not all. If you dig deeper into Hunter Biden's alleged hard drive, you find out that he had actually bigger and more lucrative deals than the Burisma case. The Burisma case was probably talked about more because it had the most circumstantial evidence up until this hard drive. The circumstantial evidence being Hunter Biden joined group. This prosecutor was a problem for him, shaking him down, shake down Shokin. And Biden stepped in to stop them from getting $1 billion until Shokin was fired. That's pretty good circumstantial evidence, but nothing you could take to court. But it does show that you are sort of dealing with slimy characters, that there is something not good about this whole situation. There's something beyond the surface from what we're seeing. These emails then go beyond that, though, and say there was even much more lucrative deals with China. And the New York Post goes on to say this: Hunter Biden email detailing alleged Chinese ties confirmed by source. Now, we will watch this video in a second. There was an email correspondence with someone in China basically divvying up percentage ownership in a company. And what it appears to show was that Hunter Biden gets 20% of the company, and that Hunter Biden would get an additional 10%, and he would hang on to it for the big guy. Well, let's see who the big guy is. We can all probably figure this out, but let's see what the source said that the big guy was.
Fox News has obtained more emails purported to be from Hunter Biden's laptop. From May 2017, correspondence with Chinese energy executives about remuneration packages, which two sources have verified to Fox News. It discusses payment for 6 people, including a reference to 10% of the equity in the deal be held by H for the big guy. Sources tell Fox News the big guy is Joe Biden, noting this was after he left office. Another email from August 2017 seeking $10 million per year in a deal that would be interesting to me and my family.
So why is this important? Because this is after he left being vice president. He's no longer vice president at this point. And the reason is because it ties back to what Hunter said to his daughter. So what Hunter said to his daughter, let's take a look at what that is. He texted, "But I don't receive any respect, and that's fine, I guess. Works for you, apparently. I hope you all can do what I did and pay for everything for this entire family for 30 years. Think about that for a second. He says, I hope you all can do what I did and pay for everything for this entire family for 30 years. It's really hard, but don't worry. Unlike Pop, Joe Biden, I won't make you give me half your salary." So on the face of it, it sounds like Hunter Biden was selling access to Joe Biden behind the scenes. In return, Joe Biden himself got half, or at least he requested half, or somehow got half. And the more I think about this, the more of a bombshell that is. If half of what Hunter Biden was making went to Joe Biden, or that's what he's saying, then presumably Joe would know where that money is coming from. And if that money is coming from deals with Burisma, deals with energy companies in China, and a lot of these other shady places, then Joe Biden is taking money from something that is ultimately shady and selling access to the federal government. This is completely and absolutely shady. If this is true, I'm going to make a prediction. If this is true, Joe Biden will either resign or be impeached if he wins this presidential election. So if he wins the election, he will either resign or be impeached, specifically over this hard drive. So this long-running allegation about the Bidens cashing in has always been alluded to, that Joe knew what was going on, but he's always denied any involvement in anything, knowing what has been going on with Hunter Biden and Robert Biden. So far, what has been the defense of Joe Biden? What has the media said about him? What has Joe Biden himself said? Well, we can do Joe Biden real quickly. So far, Joe Biden has refused to kind of speak or even answer a question. And there's very good reason for that. This is a slow drip, and I talked about this earlier. This is a very slow drip. And the point is you drip out a little bit, and once you get someone to make a statement that says this didn't happen or that didn't happen, well, it has to corroborate with what's on the hard drive. And if it doesn't, then it's just more proof that Joe Biden's a liar and that he's more shady than you would think. So the Biden campaign and Joe Biden are trying to run out the clock. They don't want to answer any questions on this. Giuliani is going to push forward and said he's going to release more 10 days before the election. I don't know why 10 days before the election. I think that's stupid. Just release it as you've got it. I understand that he's wanting Joe Biden to make a mistake, but when you put out there that you're going to put this out 10 days before the election, it makes it sound like what it is, which is this is all designed to make Joe Biden look bad before the election. But nonetheless, if it's true, it's true. And if Joe Biden has been on it from the beginning, been on the take for his son's shenanigans and his brother's shenanigans from the beginning, then the American people need to know that and still make their choice for who they want for president. But let's get back into the defenses. So far, what they've basically said is that they have attacked Giuliani's character, which is fine. And they have also attacked that apparently Steve Bannon was a part of this at one point. They've attacked the provenance of the hard drive. They've basically said it's unsubstantiated, it's circumstantial, it could be created by Russian intelligence and given to Giuliani. Once again, they're using the Russia defense. I want you to hear straight from Giuliani where he got the hard drive, the chain of custody. I want you to hear it straight from Giuliani's mouth, and so here it is.
And here's how I got it. Hunter Biden brought his hard drive into a repairman's to repair it. The repairman took it. Hunter Biden signed a receipt for it, which I have here, and said he was going to come back for it. 2 days later, he came back and gave him a part. And then when it was done, he never came back. According to the agreement, after 90 days, the hard drive is abandoned under the law, and it belongs to the merchant. The merchant held it for another 3-4 months, and then he heard all this talk on television, and he started to get worried. What do I have here? This could be criminal evidence.
Right.
So he opened it, and he almost fainted. He said, "I never saw anything like this before." And if you looked at the photographs, you'd probably come to that conclusion also. But then he took a look at the text, and he saw in the text major contradictions to what the Bidens were saying on television, like the one I just told you.
Right.
Biden was saying, "I didn't know anything about Burisma in Ukraine," and there's plenty of evidence that he did.
Can I ask you a question, Mayor Giuliani? Because, you mentioned Anthony Weiner, and, I sort of came up under Andrew Breitbart. Before it was Breitbart, it was Big Hollywood, and I was there for the Weiner scandal and Acorn and all of that. Here's my question to you, because obviously you know that the left is going to come out and say, well, this can't be corroborated. That's the basis on which Facebook and Twitter have throttled this story, despite the fact that they were covering stories that were verifiably false regarding Trump calling the troops suckers and losers. But how do you go about then behind the scenes making sure that New York Post, or have you offered any evidence to anyone other than New York Post to corroborate? Because obviously New York Post believes that this is real. They've confirmed it. But is there any way for you to get the media to confirm it behind the scenes so that we don't run afoul of social media, or do they not care?
If they think it's not correct, sue Rupert Murdoch.
And that right there is an important piece to understand. Companies like Twitter and Facebook fall under Section 230 protections, meaning they are nothing more than a platform. They're nothing more than a distributor. Think of them as like a magazine stand, right? You can't hold the magazine stand accountable for what a news organization or someone else is putting out. So think of Facebook, Twitter, even YouTube, they all fall under Section 230. They're just a platform. Now, the reason that this is important is because if what the New York Post is putting out is wrong, they could be sued into oblivion for libel. And I would venture to guess that the reason they sat on this information for 5 days verifying, which I believe was how long it took them before they posted their first story, was because they wanted to make darn sure that they were correct, that there was nothing wrong with these emails, that the chain of custody made sense, that how these emails came to be and how this came into possession, that Hunter Biden's signature matched, that when, and I'll show this clip in a second, when their lawyer requests Hunter Biden's hard drive back and laptop back, well, that's kind of indication that this belonged to Hunter Biden when Hunter Biden's lawyer says, hey, can I have Hunter's laptop back? So it all sort of corroborates, it all sort of jives, but we need to understand that if this is incorrect, the New York Post would be sued into oblivion. A huge truckload of money is on the line if they're wrong. So I don't think they're wrong. I don't think they would publish this story unless they think they had it right.
You don't, I mean, he had it for 5 days, and they did everything they could to verify it. They're convinced that it's real. Not only that, I internally verified it. There are things on that hard drive that only Hunter Biden would know, because those things were given to us by anonymous informants. Dates, for example, that aren't public. Dates of meetings that were never recorded in the State Department or the White House in order to hide them. And the hard drive comes up with exactly those same dates. That could only have been known to Hunter Biden. His pictures all over it make it pretty clear that it's him. His signature is on the receipt for it. The gentleman can identify him as Hunter Biden. And if you read the internal messages, they're quite consistent with what we already know. In fact, I'll give you something that really verifies it. The very morning this came out, within about 20 minutes, Hunter Biden's lawyer called the merchant and asked him if he could have the hard drive back.
Really? Yeah. Well, that's that also reminds me. I need to call Geek Squad.
We have the email evidence of that.
Wow.
So if the lawyer is asking for the hard drive back.
So that's pretty damning stuff. If this is all true, then Joe Biden's a liar. He's been making money by selling access to the federal government. We kind of know this stuff happens. We assumed it happened with Clinton. We assumed it kind of happens with every sort of person who's higher up. But now we have evidence of it actually happening. And this is probably more important than normal because Joe Biden kind of has a cleaner reputation. So for him to be sort of caught up in these multi-million-dollar deals, selling access for money, it's not a good look. But will it change people's minds before the election? Not sure. But one thing is for sure that this brings up an interesting point is Section 230 protections for platforms. Should it still exist? And I think I'm going to do a video on this probably later this week on whether or not Section 230 should still apply to social media platforms, because social media platforms killed the New York Post story. Now, it's one thing for them to say to you and I that you don't have the right to have free speech on our platform. Understandable, they're a corporation. But here's the problem. If you were pretending to be a platform and you're a platform that's supposed to be open and have no liabilities, then the question becomes, are you overstepping that 230 protection when you start to editorialize by picking and choosing which stories get to go out there? Now, I don't think they should have that ability to do that to individuals, but that's a little bit harder case to make. The easier case to make is they did it to an actual news agency. And when you do that, you're editorializing big time. You are a platform that's supposed to be an open platform, not held liable for what's posted. If you can shut down a story from the fourth largest distributor of a magazine, of a news publication, then you are probably violating Section 230 protections. So I will probably do a video on that later. And this video is getting way too long, so I just want to say, make sure you share this video with all of your friends. Thank you for making it this far. You are a hero in my book. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will catch you next video.